The temperature-controlled vault beneath the National Archives hummed with a metallic calm, broken only by the faint tapping of condensation within steel pipes. On most nights, the vault slept in darkness, undisturbed. But tonight, a narrow beam of white light sliced through the chamber as archivist Eleanor Hart, 42, meticulous and notoriously unsentimental about anything older than 1776, unlocked a forgotten alcove no one had requested access to in nearly 80 years. The smell hit her first. Not the dry, dusty scent of parchment or aging leather. This was different, metallic, sharp, almost like old coins soaked in seawater. Eleanor frowned. Strange. Her gloved hand traced the edges of a wooden chest, unpolished, nailed shut, with no federal markings. Only a crudely carved symbol, a circle intersected by 3 arrows. She didn't recognize it from any known department seal, and Eleanor Hart did not like not recognizing things. The database indices said the chest had been logged in 1947, transferred from a temporary intelligence facility in Arlington. The tag was oddly vague, classified material for permanent storage. No department named, no clearance level, no originating office. It was as though someone wanted the chest hidden, not cataloged. Eleanor hesitated only a moment before prying open the lid. A puff of stale, iron-tinged air escaped. Inside lay a single object, a thick, leather-bound ledger, edges warped, spine cracked, no title. But what seized her attention instantly was the emblem stamped on its cover, the same circle and 3 arrows. Eleanor lifted the book. Despite its size, it was astonishingly heavy. She opened to the first page. The handwriting was neat but forceful, penned in ink dark enough to challenge the yellowing paper. A date sat atop the page, June 3rd, 1491. Eleanor blinked. Impossible. North America in 1491 was not the domain of European script, yet the handwriting was unmistakably European. She read the first line. To the sovereigns of Castile and Aragon, I report the discovery of a civilization in the Western Sea greater than any charted by our scholars. Her heart rate quickened. This wasn't a journal. This was a report. The signature at the bottom chilled her. Cristóbal Colón, Christopher Columbus. Eleanor suddenly felt the weight of the vault shift around her, as if history itself were leaning in, breath held. This ledger, if authentic, rewrote everything. But it was the next page that shattered her composure. The cities here are older than Rome. Their libraries hold scripts our priests cannot read. Their instruments reveal stars our astronomers have never charted. She turned the page faster. Her gloved fingers trembled. And their leaders claim they have records of travelers from across the ocean, arriving centuries before we Spaniards set sail. Her breath hitched. If this was genuine, it was the single most explosive historical document in American memory. She turned another page, but before she could read further, the heavy latch of the vault door groaned open behind her. Eleanor froze. She hadn't requested company. No one should have been able to override the lock. Dr. Hart, came a voice she recognized, but never expected to hear at this hour. Deputy Director Marcus Rourke, National Archives Division of Special Holdings. A man whose authority was matched only by his talent for being perfectly invisible until the exact moment he didn't want to be. Eleanor closed the ledger halfway, instinctively protective. Rourke stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Where did you find that?" he asked quietly. "In this alcove. It was misfiled." No, it wasn't. His eyes were not on her. They were on the ledger, and there was fear in them. "Dr. Hart," he said, voice low, "you need to put that ledger back into the chest, right now." Eleanor stiffened. "On what grounds?" Rourke inhaled slowly. She saw the moment he decided she could no longer be treated like an ordinary archivist. That ledger is part of an operation so old that even presidents weren't told about it after Truman left office. Eleanor blinked. That makes no sense. If it's that important, why was it abandoned in a forgotten vault? Rourke's jaw tightened. Because the moment people stop looking at something, they stop asking questions about it. Eleanor felt a cold ripple climb her spine. And what is in this ledger that warrants 77 years of silence? Rourke exhaled. Proof, he said, that the Americas weren't discovered once, or twice, but several times, by civilizations capable of things modern history still can't explain. He stepped closer. Civilizations whose survivors, according to that ledger, may not be extinct. Eleanor felt the vault shrink around her. She opened the ledger fully. Page after page, drawings of vast stone cities, not matching any known native architecture. Maps of coastlines drawn with eerie accuracy centuries before official exploration. Notes referencing languages that didn't match indigenous families or European ones. This wasn't just a Columbus report. It was an intelligence dossier. And then she found a page marked with a smear of red wax. Those who built the towers on the western shores vanished before my arrival, yet traces of their craft persist in the mountains. Some among the tribes say they retreated underground. Others say they await a signal. Eleanor looked up. What signal? Rourke swallowed. We don't know. Her pulse pounded in her ears. This changes everything. Rourke's response was immediate. And that, he said, is exactly why it was buried.
The elevator ride from the sub-basement to the secure conference wing felt like moving through the hollow spine of a sleeping beast. Eleanor Hart stood in silence beside Deputy Director Marcus Rourke, the ledger sealed inside a protective lockbox clamped under his arm. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered intermittently, something that normally would have irritated Eleanor, but tonight only added to the tension crawling beneath her skin. The elevator chimed softly. They stepped out into a corridor lined with framed photographs of U.S. archivists, historians, and preservationists, people whose life's work had been uncovering truths, not burying them. But tonight, she was being ushered into a room where truths were intentionally kept dead. Rourke pressed his badge to a nondescript door. A mechanical lock disengaged with a heavy thunk. Inside was a windowless room, long and rectangular, with a polished oak table that looked more appropriate for the Situation Room than anything in the archives. Two people were already seated. Eleanor recognized one immediately, Dr. Alan Weiss, the nation's foremost pre-Columbian historian, author of Echoes of the First Nations. His presence made no sense. He had retired 4 years ago. The second person was a stranger, a woman in her late 30s, posture erect, eyes sharp and assessing, military. Her expression conveyed nothing. Rourke closed the door behind them. Everyone is here. We can begin. The woman rose first. My name is Colonel Mara Keene, Department of Defense. I oversee the continuity archives for anomalous historical intelligence. Eleanor frowned. Continuity archives? Keene ignored the tone. You've all been granted temporary clearance under Directive Orion. Weiss inhaled sharply. That directive was supposed to be defunct. It was, until tonight. Eleanor folded her arms. Exactly what is Directive Orion? Rourke placed the lockbox on the table. It concerns discoveries, he said slowly, that challenge the foundational timeline of Western civilization in the Americas. Anything that suggests a sophisticated, non-indigenous civilization existed on this continent long before European arrival, and whose cultural remnants cannot be explained by known anthropological models. Eleanor stared. That sounds like a conspiracy theory. Except, Weiss replied softly, we've encountered the evidence. Keene nodded toward Rourke. Open it. He unlocked the box. The ledger emerged like a relic resurrected. Weiss leaned forward, eyes widening. My God! He reached out but stopped himself just short of touching it. I heard whispers of this in the 90s, a rumor about a pre-Columbian European manuscript found in the Virginia Intelligence Archives. I thought it was a myth. It was meant to be, until tonight, Eleanor uncovered it. Eleanor stiffened. I didn't uncover anything. It was in a misfiled alcove. Anyone could have found it. Which is exactly the problem, Keene said. Eleanor exhaled sharply, frustration simmering. If this ledger is authentic, why hide it? Why conceal something so historically significant? Keene exchanged a look with Rourke before answering. Because every time evidence of this civilization appears, something follows. What follows? Eleanor demanded. Rourke hesitated. Disappearances. The room went still. Weiss shifted. Disappearances of what? Artifacts? No, Keene said. People. A cold pulse ran through the room. Weiss looked shaken. You're saying people who studied evidence like this ledger, what, vanished? Rourke nodded grimly. Since the 1870s, dozens. Archaeologists, surveyors, cryptographers, anyone who got too close to certain pre-colonial sites or records describing them. That's not possible, Eleanor whispered. Not in the modern age. It happened as recently as 2002. A topographic team in northern Arizona went silent after reporting strange structural anomalies inside the Grand Canyon. Their final transmission included a reference to this symbol. Keene tapped the ledger's cover. Eleanor stared at the circle intersected by 3 arrows. Who would do that? She whispered. Rourke leaned in. That's the question the government stopped asking decades ago. Weiss finally spoke. What exactly does Columbus describe in this ledger? Rourke opened the book. Columbus's handwriting flowed across the aging parchment with confidence bordering on arrogance. Listen to this, Rourke said. He read aloud. We approached the great western river where the towers rise like guardians. They warned us not to touch the stones, for they were the last memory of the lost engineers. Eleanor frowned. Engineers? In North America? In 1491? Weiss nodded slowly. There are indigenous legends of ancient builders, people who shaped stone with heat, who built observatories aligned with stars not visible today. Keene added, satellite thermal imaging from 1994 found residual geometric heat signatures beneath parts of the Rockies and the Appalachians, shapes too precise to be natural. Eleanor felt her skepticism wrestling with a growing dread. So what are you all saying? That a technologically advanced civilization existed in North America before any known indigenous cultures? No, Weiss said softly. We're saying one existed alongside them and perhaps before them. Rourke read another passage. The people here speak of the First Republic, older than their oldest songs. Their scholars hid their knowledge when the sky burners came from the east. They say the Republic was not conquered. It dissolved itself, leaving behind only signs for those worthy to find. First Republic? Eleanor repeated. That's impossible. Republics didn't exist in the Western world until... Weiss raised a finger. Until Rome. Yes, that's what we've always believed. But Columbus implies otherwise. Rourke continued. Their leaders spoke with conviction that their ancestors traveled to lands beyond the horizon centuries before we Spaniards dreamed of such voyages. They warned that others would come, seeking the forgotten cities, and that these would not be men of peace. Keene folded her hands. Now you understand why Directorate Orion existed. The U.S. government believes fragments of this First Republic still exist, and that others, foreign powers, have been searching for them. Eleanor stared at the ledger. If this civilization was real, where did it go? Where are the remains? Rourke shut the ledger. That's what we need your help to find out. Wait, why me? I'm an archivist. I preserve documents. I don't chase myths. Rourke gave her a knowing look. Because you don't believe in myths, and because you found this ledger in less than 20 minutes, something dozens of men with military clearances failed to do for 70 years. Keene stood. This ledger is not just history, it's a map. Eleanor blinked. A map to where? Keene tapped a finger on the emblem. To the cities this republic left behind. Weiss's voice trembled with excitement. Do you realize what that could mean? Cities older than Rome? Engineering we can't explain? Philosophies predating Athens? A forgotten chapter of human history right here in North America. Rourke inhaled. And if the wrong people find them first, we won't be dealing with archaeology, Keene finished. We'll be dealing with national security threats. Eleanor steadied herself. So what happens next? Keene folded her arms behind her back. We're forming a field team. Rourke will handle federal authorization, Weiss will provide historical expertise, and you, Dr. Hart, will handle the ledger. Eleanor stared. Handle it how? You'll decipher it. We think the ledger contains coordinates, encoded references, linguistic markers, symbolic pathways. Columbus may not have understood everything he documented, but we can. A shiver slid down Eleanor's spine. And if these cities really exist? Keene's expression hardened. We reached them first. Rourke gave Eleanor a small, grim smile. Congratulations, you're now part of the Orion Initiative. Eleanor swallowed. Whether I want to be or not? Keene nodded once. Exactly. Silence settled, like dust. And then, the lights flickered. But this time, they didn't come back on. A sharp electric pop burst from the ceiling. Eleanor jerked. Emergency lights glowed red along the floor. Keene's hand moved to her sidearm. Rourke stiffened. Weiss whispered, Is this normal? No, Keene said. Not here. Then, a faint metallic thud from somewhere above them. Another. And another. Getting closer. Eleanor's pulse spiked. Rourke hissed, They found it fast. Who? Weiss paled. Keene drew her gun. The same people who've been following these clues for decades. The
pounding stopped. The ventilation shaft above them groaned. Something or someone was pushing its way in. Keene took aim. But before she could fire, the grate dropped to the floor with a deafening clang. A silhouette crouched in the opening, tall, cloaked, wearing a mask with the same circle and 3 arrows symbol etched in silver. Eleanor felt her breath freeze. The figure spoke in a voice distorted by some kind of modulator, a voice that sounded ancient and mechanical at the same time. Return the ledger. Keene fired. The figure moved faster than any person Eleanor had ever seen. And suddenly, the ledger was gone. Snatched from the table in a blur of motion, Eleanor lurched forward. No! The figure leapt back into the shaft just as security sirens screamed to life. But before disappearing, it turned its masked face toward Eleanor. The Republic remembers. Then it vanished.
For 3 full seconds, no one moved. The emergency sirens blared overhead, red strobes pulsing across the conference room. Eleanor Hart's mind spun, refusing to process what had just happened. The ledger, the artifact capable of overturning centuries of American history, was gone. Stolen by a cloaked figure wearing the same symbol branded on the book itself. Rourke was the first to break the paralysis. "Colonel," he barked. But Keene was already in motion, tearing open the door and sprinting down the hallway. Weiss stumbled after her, slower, breath ragged. Eleanor followed without thinking, her shoes slapping the polished floor as alarms echoed like metallic thunderclaps in the distance. The corridor was filling with security personnel, 3, then 6, then more, armed and moving with coordinated urgency. Yet none of them seemed to know which direction the intruder had gone. Keene stopped abruptly and keyed into her radio. "Control, lock down Sector B9. We have a breach. Repeat, we have a breach. Hostile is masked, non-compliant, extremely fast, may be armed." The radio spat static. Then a voice responded. "Colonel, we can't lock down B9. Someone already triggered the override." Keene cursed under her breath. "Who?" "Unknown." Eleanor felt nausea rise. Whoever the intruder was, they weren't just prepared, they had resources. Rourke caught up, breathing heavily. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone knew we'd open the ledger tonight. Weiss clutched his side, panting. "You think there's a mole inside the archives?" Keene didn't answer. Because all of them were thinking the same thing. Only a handful of people even knew the ledger existed. Keene straightened, her eyes cold and sharp. "We don't have time. They're heading for an exit." Eleanor's mind clicked. "The ventilation shaft. If he used the vents to get in, he'll use them to get out." Keene nodded once. "Rourke, take a team to the south maintenance corridor. Weiss, stay with me. Dr. Hart, bridge level, west exit. Move." Eleanor swallowed her fear and ran. The chase. The west exit corridor was eerily empty, the alarms pounding louder the farther she went. Eleanor's lungs burned, her heart hammering in her ears. She hated running. She was a scholar, not an athlete, but adrenaline made her faster than she'd ever been. She rounded the corner and skidded to a halt. A man lay unconscious on the floor, wearing the uniform of a federal guard. His badge had been ripped off. His radio was crushed. A long, clean bruise stretched across his temple. He had never seen the blow coming. Eleanor crouched, checking his breathing, steady, shallow. "Hang on," she whispered. "Help is coming." But a noise made her look up sharply. Footsteps, fast ones. She stood slowly. At the far end of the corridor, a dark silhouette moved. Not the cloaked intruder. This figure was short, stocky, wearing a black maintenance uniform and holding the ledger in one hand. Eleanor froze. "There are 2 of them?" The figure noticed her and bolted. Eleanor didn't think. She chased. "Stop!" she shouted, surprising herself with the force in her voice. The man sprinted for the emergency stairwell. Eleanor was right behind him, so close she could see the grease stains on his collar. Down one flight, then another. Her legs screamed. Her lungs begged her to stop. The man shoved open another door and disappeared into darkness. Eleanor followed and ran straight into a wall of cold night air. She was outside. The archive's loading dock stretched before her, silent, dimly lit by tall sodium lamps, the entire perimeter fenced and gated. A delivery truck idled near the gate, its engine humming. The man raced toward the truck, waving. The passenger door swung open. The cloaked figure was inside. The real threat, the masked one, the one who had spoken. "No!" Eleanor gasped, pushing herself harder. "No!" But she was too slow. The man leapt into the truck's cab. The cloaked figure grabbed the ledger from him and turned its silver-marked mask towards Eleanor as the truck began rolling. For a moment, just a moment, the figure paused as if studying her. Then it lifted one hand. A small metallic device arced through the air toward her. Eleanor gasped and ducked. The device hit the pavement with a hard ping. A burst of white light exploded. Eleanor shielded her face, blinded. Her ears rang, her vision fragmented into kaleidoscopic sparks. When she finally blinked the light away, the truck was gone, vanished through the security gate, which swung open far too easily. Someone had overridden the controls. Again. Footsteps pounded behind her. Keene and a squad of security personnel burst onto the loading dock. "Where is he?" Keene demanded. "Gone," Eleanor whispered. "They took the ledger." Keene's expression hardened. "Not they!" Rourke stepped forward with an ashen face. "That symbol, those masks, that wasn't a thief." Weiss arrived last, gasping for air. "Then what was it?" Rourke exhaled slowly. "A messenger." The word echoed across the loading dock like a sentence. Eleanor blinked. "A what?" Keene holstered her gun. In Directive Orion's old briefing logs, there were accounts, unconfirmed reports, of individuals wearing masks marked with that symbol. Weiss nodded weakly. They were said to be the last descendants or guardians of the First Republic. Eleanor shook her head, refusing the insanity of it. "That's impossible. Columbus wrote about them in 1491. No closed society lasts that long, not without being discovered." Rourke fixed her with an unsettling stare. "That's what we used to believe. But the intruder tonight wasn't just fast. He moved like someone trained for this, someone whose job is to collect anything pointing toward the Republic's existence." Keene straightened, her eyes cold and sharp. "And he targeted you." Eleanor's stomach twisted. "What? Why me? I'm not part of this." "You are now," Rourke added. "He saw your face. He spared you, and he threw you something." Eleanor frowned. "Threw me something?" Rourke pointed at the pavement. A small metallic object lay exactly where the flash device had struck. Eleanor hadn't noticed it falling afterward. Carefully, she picked it up. It was a coin. Old, heavy, made of a metal she couldn't identify. Dark, slightly iridescent. The symbol of the 3 arrows inside a circle was etched on one side, but the back held something stranger. A map fragment, etched in impossible detail. Eleanor's breath caught. Weiss leaned in, eyes widening. "That looks like the Appalachian Range," Rourke finished. Keene stared at the coin with an expression Eleanor wasn't used to seeing on hardened military officers. Fear. "This wasn't a threat," she said slowly. "It was an invitation." Eleanor felt the world tilt. Invitation to what? Weiss swallowed. To find the cities the Republic left behind. Rourke crossed his arms, grim. And to start the race before someone else does. Eleanor pocketed the coin instinctively, feeling its cold weight thumb against her palm like a heartbeat. The night air felt suddenly colder. Keene straightened, her voice clipped and decisive. "He took the ledger, but he left you the starting point. That means you're involved now whether we like it or not." Rourke nodded. "Dr. Hart, the Republic just chose you." Eleanor stared at the gates where the truck disappeared, and the truth settled in her chest. History wasn't waiting to be discovered. It was coming for her. Eleanor lay awake long after midnight, the hum of the archive's ventilation system whispering through the dimly lit guest suite they had placed her in for safety. Sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the silver-marked mask staring down at her, wordless and calm, as if she had been judged and chosen. The coin pressed against her palm like a pulse, cold, dense, too heavy for its size. She turned on her side and held it up to the lamp. Even in low light, it glimmered faintly, an iridescent sheen shifting across the surface like oil on water. Not gold, not silver, not any alloy she recognized. On one side, the 3 arrows within a circle. On the reverse, a topographical map fragment engraved with intricate precision. She traced the ridgeline with her thumb, the Appalachians, but not exactly as they appear on modern maps. The peaks seemed sharper, the valleys deeper, rivers flowing slightly differently. A much older geography. Weiss had said as much before they'd all been herded into debriefings. "This isn't a modern representation," he'd said, his voice trembling with excitement. "This is a map of the terrain as it looked thousands of years ago." But one feature intrigued Eleanor most. A small mark, almost imperceptible, sat near where present-day western North Carolina would be. A tiny triangle. A marker. She turned the coin over again. Its surface seemed warmer now, as if it knew she was watching, as if it wanted to be understood. The morning meeting. When dawn finally broke, Eleanor found herself escorted by two stone-faced security officers to the archive's lower briefing room, one typically reserved for interagency discussions. Inside, coffee steamed from paper cups. Charts were pinned to boards. Satellite images were spread across a long table. Everyone from last night was already present. Rourke, Weiss, Keene, and two new faces Eleanor didn't recognize. A man with graying hair and a stern military posture, and a woman in a crisp suit with an NSA badge. Keene gestured to them. "This is General Stephen Maddox, Joint Intelligence Command, and this is Director Valerie Cho from the NSA's Special Analysis Division." The two nodded politely. Eleanor managed a stiff nod in return. Rourke motioned for her to sit. "Let's begin," he said. Keene clicked a remote. A projection filled the wall, an enlarged, high-res scan of the coin's engraved map. "We obtained a metallurgical scan overnight. The coin's composition doesn't match any known alloy. No natural metal reads like this under spectrometer." The NSA director, Cho, folded her arms. "It's extraterrestrial in isotopic signature." Silence. Eleanor blinked. "Like alien?" Cho shook her head. "No, not spaceborne. Just not from any refined metal we've cataloged on Earth. The spectral profile is anomalous." Weiss let out a breathy laugh. "Oh, this is extraordinary." Rourke shot him a look. "We're not jumping to conclusions yet." Cho continued, tapping the map. "We overlaid the engraving with topographical changes from glacial retreat models going back 20,000 years. The match is uncanny." Keene stepped forward. "And that triangle marking? It aligns with an anomaly we detected 2 years ago." Eleanor leaned forward. "An anomaly? Where?" Maddox answered this time. "A cavern system beneath the Pisgah National Forest. Too symmetrical to be natural, too deep to be surveyed without violating federal jurisdiction. Our teams never went in." "Why not?" Eleanor asked. Maddox paused. "Because the last group we sent," he said quietly, "never returned." A shock of cold went down Eleanor's spine. Rourke nodded grimly. "They reported finding geometric stone structures underground, pillars, archways, cut marks inconsistent with indigenous tools. Then they transmitted one word before contact was lost." He pressed a key on his laptop. Static crackled, followed by a faint whisper. "Messengers." Eleanor felt the breath leave her. Weiss closed his eyes, whispering, "They were watching even then." Keene slid a satellite printout forward. "This same symbol from the ledger and from the mask has been found carved into bedrock in 3 locations across the Appalachians Range. 2 are now inaccessible due to rock slides. The 3rd is exactly where the coin's marker sits." Cho added, "We believe the intruder last night didn't just take the ledger. He gave you a key." Eleanor sat back. "Why me?" Rourke answered softly, "We don't know, but he chose you." Keene stepped toward Eleanor. We need to follow this map. Eleanor blinked. You want to go into the cavern system? The one where teams vanished? Maddox's expression was stone. We can't afford not to. Weiss leaned forward eagerly. This could be the first real evidence of the First Republic, the civilization Columbus described. Eleanor turned the coin over in her hand again. The cold metal throbbed like a heartbeat. How will we even get to the site? She asked. Rourke answered with a sigh. Under military escort, formally classified expedition, we move in 48 hours. Keene added, You'll lead the interpretive team. Your job is to decipher symbols, markings, anything that helps us understand what the Republic left behind. Eleanor rubbed her forehead. This is insane. I'm an archivist. Weiss smiled gently. You're more than that now. Rourke looked her directly in the eye. You're the only person the messenger didn't harm. That means something. But why? What does he want from me? Eleanor asked. Keene's tone dropped lower. We believe the messengers are not hostile unless threatened. They've protected their secrets for centuries. Maybe they're choosing to reveal them now. Maybe they're choosing you. Eleanor stared at the map again, and then her eyes widened. Something in the engraving she hadn't noticed before. A faint pattern around the triangle marker. Not random, not decorative. A series of tiny etched symbols. She squinted. Letters? No. Glyphs? Possibly. But something about their arrangement looked familiar. Keene noticed her expression. What is it? Eleanor didn't answer at first. She reached for her notebook and sketched the symbols exactly as they appeared. Weiss leaned over her shoulder. His breath hitched. That looks like, he whispered, Proto-Olmec. Eleanor nodded, heart racing. Specifically, early Cascading script. Rourke frowned. But that writing belonged to Central America, not the Appalachians. Weiss nodded vigorously. Unless the tradition migrated north or originated here. Eleanor added, None of the known Cascading inscriptions resemble this pattern. It's older, much older. Keene looked at her sharply. Can you translate any of it? Eleanor scanned the markings again, her brain moving faster than her fear. A few, she said quietly. She circled the first grouping. This means path, or journey. Then she circled the second. This is below, possibly under the earth. Weiss's eyes widened. A journey below the earth. Eleanor circled the final grouping, a small, tight cluster around the triangle. This, she whispered, means awakening, or return. The room went dead silent. Keene broke the stillness. We leave tomorrow. Eleanor stared at everyone, and Eleanor realized in a single, dizzying moment that she was no longer reading about history. She was stepping into it.
The helicopter's blades carved the morning sky into spinning white ribbons as it lifted above the restricted military airfield outside Washington, D.C. Eleanor Hart sat strapped into a seat along the interior wall, her hands wrapped tightly around her harness. She wasn't afraid of flying. She was afraid of where she was being flown to. Across from her sat Dr. Alan Weiss, flipping nervously through an old field notebook. Next to him, Colonel Keene checked her weapon, her expression cold and unreadable. Rourke sat on Eleanor's left, studying the coin under a portable magnifier. The rest of the team, 8 special operations soldiers, 1 geotech specialist, and 1 medic, sat rigid and silent in full gear. Their faces were too disciplined to show fear, but Eleanor felt it in the way they avoided her eyes, as though she were carrying something cursed. The coin.
The invitation. The reason they were descending into a place from which others hadn't returned. Rourke snapped shut the magnifier. "It's not just a map," he said, raising his voice over the engine. "It's a key." Eleanor swallowed. "A key to what?" "We don't know," Rourke said, "but I suspect the messenger gave it to you because it only works in your possession." Before Eleanor could respond, a voice crackled through the cabin intercom. "Approaching grid sector. Prepare for descent." Keene stood and braced herself against a ceiling strap. "Listen up. This is a recon entry mission. 0 confirmed hostiles, but previous disappearances mean we treat this like an active op. No wandering off, no splitting up, no assumptions. Dr. Hart leads interpretation. Dr. Weiss leads archaeology. I lead survival. Understood?" The soldiers responded in unison. "Yes, ma'am." Eleanor tried to inhale deeply. Her stomach felt like it was floating several inches behind her. Weiss leaned closer. "Eleanor, if this truly is what we think it is..." She pressed her lips together. "I know." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The drop site. The helicopter descended into a clearing carved into a plateau of dense forest. Pine and oak trees surrounded them like silent sentinels. The morning fog hung low, clinging to the canopy. Keene jumped down first. "Secure perimeter." The soldiers fanned out, scanning the tree line. Rourke and Weiss hopped down next. Eleanor followed, her boots squishing into wet leaves. The air smelled of moss, stone, and something else. Something metallic. She looked around. "This isn't a civilian forest," she murmured. Rourke nodded. "It hasn't been for decades. The government fenced this entire section off in 1972 after seismic readings showed hollow chambers beneath." Weiss pointed toward a rocky ridge at the west edge of the clearing. "That's where we're headed." Beyond the ridge, a fissure cut across the mountainside, narrow, dark, unnaturally straight. Keene took point. "Move out." The entrance. The fissure yawned like a slit cut into the world's skin. Eleanor's flashlight pierced the darkness, revealing a steep descent. The geotech specialist lowered instruments into the fissure. "No natural erosion patterns," he said. "This is carved." Weiss crouched beside him. "Carved how?" The specialist shrugged uneasily. "Stone tools don't make cuts this straight. Power tools don't either. This looks like heat shaping." Rourke frowned. "What kind of heat?" The man shook his head. "Nothing we have." Eleanor's heart thudded. Keene snapped her fingers. "Harnesses up. We rappel together." One by one, they clipped onto the line as the soldiers anchored equipment to the rocky ledge. Eleanor went down between Rourke and Weiss. The descent was cold and slow. Wind moaned through the fractured passage, echoing like distant voices. The deeper they went, the more Eleanor's flashlight reflected off something unusual. Smooth walls. Polished. Shaped. Not like a natural cavern. After 30 meters, the fissure widened into a chamber. Weiss whispered, "Oh my God." Even Keene paused. The cavern opened into a vast, perfectly cut dome, its walls shimmering faintly in torchlight. Eleanor touched the stone. Warm. Not damp, not cold. Warm. "Like the coin," she whispered. Keene scanned the chamber. "Team, lights." Flood lamps illuminated the space. The walls weren't just polished, they were engraved. Weiss gasped. "Glyphs! Thousands of them!" They spiraled around the chamber like vines growing upward. Eleanor stepped closer. "This script, it's the same as the coin, but more complex." Rourke asked, "Can you read any of it?" "Some," Eleanor said slowly. "These marks reference stars, migrations, histories." Weiss leaned beside her. "And this section? Look, these symbols repeat in sequences. That implies governance, laws. This might be a civic record. A civic record from a civilization we didn't know existed, Rourke said. Keen stepped forward, shining her flashlight toward the floor. At the center of the chamber was a massive circular depression, 3 feet deep, 10 feet wide, smooth as glass. "What's this?" she asked. Weiss studied the edges. "A basin? Ritual site?" Eleanor crouched and placed her fingers on the rim. The stone was warmer here. "It's not a bowl," she quietly said. "It's a socket." Rourke stiffened. "A socket for what?" Eleanor looked at the coin in her palm. Her eyes widened. "No," Keen said immediately. "Absolutely not. You are not putting that thing on any ancient mechanism." Eleanor ignored her. She lifted the coin. The soldiers raised their weapons instinctively. Weiss whispered, "Eleanor, be careful." The coin vibrated gently, just enough that she could feel it in her fingertips, as if the chamber recognized it. She lowered it toward the basin. Keen grabbed her wrist. "Stop!" But before Eleanor could respond, the walls hummed. A deep, resonant vibration trembled through the entire chamber. The soldiers staggered. Flood lamps flickered. The glyphs on the walls lit up in a slow wave, glowing with a soft amber hue. One row at a time, a pulse traveling upward around the dome. Eleanor jerked her hand back, but the coin now glowed faintly, responding to the chamber like tuning forks resonating. Keen shouted, "Everyone step back!" "It's activating," Weiss whispered. The humming deepened. The center of the basin illuminated. A circular light arose from its depths, soft, golden, warming the air. Eleanor's breath caught. The glyphs shifted, their glowing patterns rearranging themselves into new sequences. "Eleanor," Rourke said sharply, "what's happening?" She stared up at the shifting symbols. They're responding to us, changing." Weiss's voice cracked with awe. "It's a recording, a dynamic one. This is pre-electronic, but somehow it reacts to proximity and stimuli." A soldier shouted from the edge of the chamber, "Contact! We've got movement!" Keen drew her weapon instantly. Rourke spun around. Weiss froze. Eleanor turned slowly toward the cavern entrance. A shadow stepped into the chamber. Tall, cloaked, mask gleaming in the amber light. The circle and 3 arrows. Another messenger. Or perhaps the same one. Eleanor's pulse slammed against her ribs. Keen raised her gun. "Don't move!" But the messenger didn't even glance at her. His attention was fixed on Eleanor. Then he spoke. Not with the mechanical distortion from before, not with a voice of menace, but with a deep, resonant tone that seemed older than the chamber itself. "The Republic awakens." Eleanor's knees nearly buckled. The messenger lifted his hand, slow, deliberate, and pointed at the glowing basin. "Return the key," he commanded. Keen stepped in front of Eleanor. "You're not taking anything." The messenger tilted his head slightly, regarding Keen with something between curiosity and pity. "You misunderstand," he said. "The key does not belong to me." He extended his hand toward Eleanor. "It belongs to her." Eleanor's throat tightened. "Why?" she whispered. The messenger took a slow step forward. "Because she can read what others cannot." He raised his other hand toward the glowing glyphs overhead. "Because she carries the blood of those who once walked these halls." Weiss gasped. Rourke staggered. Eleanor felt the cave tilt. I don't understand," she stammered. "I'm family is from Ohio. I'm not part of any ancient civilization." The messenger lowered his hand. His voice softened. "Knowledge is a lineage. Understanding is an inheritance. You are chosen not by blood, but by mind." Keen spat. "We're leaving. Eleanor, get behind me." But the messenger extended a finger. pointing past Keen at the glowing column of light. The chamber vibrated again, deeper this time. Stone grated, dust fell from the ceiling. Glyphs spiraled and rearranged themselves rapidly, like the chamber was rewriting itself. Weiss shouted over the rising hum. "Something's happening! Something big!" The messenger stepped back toward the exit. "Follow the path," he said to Eleanor. "Do not fear what wakes. Fear what hunts it." Keen shouted after him, "Stop!" But he dissolved into the shadows, vanishing without a sound. The chamber's hum reached a crescendo. Eleanor's coin pulsed violently, and then the floor split open beneath them. The chamber floor groaned like a dying beast. A crack split across the circular basin, glowing white-hot from within. Eleanor staggered backward as the tremor ripped through the cavern, sending fragments of stone skittering across the floor. "Move!" Keen shouted. Soldiers scrambled, grabbing equipment and pulling Weiss away from the widening fissure. Rourke yanked Eleanor by her arm just as the center of the basin dropped, smoothly, silently, like an enormous stone platform descending on an invisible elevator. Eleanor gasped. It's mechanical." "No way," the geotech specialist whispered. "We scanned. There's no metal structure beneath. This isn't built with anything we understand." Keen shoved him toward the wall. "Everything we believed about this place is wrong. Keep your head straight." The platform continued to sink, glowing brighter the farther it descended. Eleanor watched, transfixed. This wasn't a natural reaction. This wasn't a trap. It was a signal. The messenger had activated it. Or, more terrifyingly, the coin had. Weiss clutched Eleanor's sleeve. "Do you hear that?" Eleanor cocked her head. At first, all she heard was grinding stone and the pounding of her own heart. But then, a tone hum began to rise from the depths. Soft, low, mathematically precise. The pitch shifted in increments, like someone tuning an enormous subterranean instrument. Rourke's voice trembled. "This isn't random." Eleanor nodded, breath caught in her chest. "It's language. The light below." When the platform finally settled, the entire basin chamber stopped shaking. A section of the floor had lowered 20 feet, revealing a downward tunnel lit by pulsing amber crystal embedded in the walls. Eleanor stepped closer, ignoring Keen's outstretched arm. "No," Keen said firmly, "we stay together." Weiss swallowed hard. "Colonel, we can't turn back now. This is the greatest discovery in North American archaeology. We're inside a constructed cavern system no indigenous or colonial people ever recorded." Keen shot him a sharp glare. "I'm responsible for lives, Dr. Weiss, not academic points." Eleanor pointed toward the tunnel. "The glyphs are lit. They want us to follow." Rourke grabbed his radio. "Command, this is Field Leader 1. We've experienced a structural shift underground." Static hissed. No voice responded. He tried another channel. More static. Keen tested hers. Nothing. "She's cut off," she muttered, deliberately. Eleanor lifted the coin again. Its faint glow matched the pulsing of the crystals in the tunnel, almost like it was sinking. "It's calling us," she whispered. Keen exhaled sharply. "All right, we go in, but no one touches anything unless Dr. Hart or Dr. Weiss says so. Weapons ready, slow and quiet. Move." The team descended into the passage. The air grew warmer with each step, smelling faintly of ozone and damp stone. The tunnel's walls were too perfectly smooth, curved like they were melted, not chiseled. Weiss ran his fingers over the surface. No tool marks, none. This is either heat-formed or chemically shaped. Nothing in ancient engineering compares. Keen snorted. Nothing in modern engineering compares. Rourke's flashlight paused on a set of circular indentations along the left wall, dozens of them, stacked vertically. "What are these?" he asked. Eleanor leaned in. "Not indentations," she said. "Glyphs." Weiss squinted, excitement overtaking fear. "They're numerical, but not base 10. Eleanor touched one lightly. "It's a date." Weiss inhaled sharply. "Yes, but this numbering system, it looks like it predates known Mesoamerican counting. Could be tens of thousands of years old." Keen muttered, "Fantastic. So we're walking through a time capsule from the Ice Age." Rourke stiffened. "Or from something even older." The Hall of Pillars. After 20 minutes, the narrow tunnel opened into an enormous chamber. Eleanor stopped dead. Columns, massive stone pillars lined the hall, each carved with intricate patterns that glowed as they approached. The ceiling soared at least 100 feet above, disappearing into shadow. Kane whispered, "This isn't a cave. This is a building." Weiss's voice cracked. "A temple or a senate hall." Eleanor stepped forward, eyes wide. "A civic chamber. The First Republic. This was one of its seats of governance." Rourke scanned the perimeter. "It's too large, too sophisticated. Even Rome didn't build anything like this underground." The geotech specialist knelt and studied the floor, running a laser along the surface. "There's no settling, no cracking, no seepage. This chamber is engineered to withstand geological change." "Meaning?" Keen asked. "It wasn't built in the Earth. It was built before the Earth shifted around it." Eleanor felt chills run up her spine. Weiss murmured, "They built this before the Appalachian uplift stabilized, thousands of years before any known civilization." Keen raised a hand. "Quiet." A sound echoed from deep within the hall. A slow, rhythmic tapping, like something knocking against stone. The soldiers raised their rifles. Eleanor held her breath. The tapping repeated, steady, measured, communicative. "Is it Morse?" Rourke whispered. Eleanor shook her head. "No, too old." Weiss frowned. "What do you mean?" "This rhythm matches the tonal counting system on the tunnel wall. It's a numerical signal. Someone or something is activating components of this structure." Keen pointed toward the far end of the hall. "There," she whispered. The tapping was coming from behind a long archway partially obscured by shadows. Keen signaled 2 soldiers. "Flank left. Keep weapons low, but ready." The team advanced in formation. As they approached the archway, Eleanor felt the coin vibrate again, this time harder. "Stop," she hissed. Keen glared back. "What is it?" "The coin," she whispered. "Something is reacting to it." Rourke moved beside her. "Should we put it away?" "No," Eleanor said. "If it's resonating, we need to know why." The tapping stopped abruptly. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. Weiss whispered, "Something knows we're here." Then, a soft, faint glow emerged from the darkness. A small sphere of light drifted into view, floating several inches off the ground. Its surface rippled like molten gold, shifting shape subtly. Eleanor gasped. It's an energy construct." Weiss stepped forward, despite Keen grabbing his jacket. This is impossible. This is pre-electrical energy manipulation." Keen yanked him back. Impossible or not, don't get closer. The sphere drifted toward them, slowly, cautiously, as if examining them. Then it hovered directly in front of Eleanor. Her breath caught. It's focusing on me. Keen raised her weapon. Don't move. The sphere pulsed softly. And then it projected something. Lines of light formed in the air, spiraling symbols that shifted into shapes, then maps, then more symbols. Eleanor felt her knees weaken. It's showing us historical data. Weiss trembled with awe. A living archive. Rourke stared at the constructions of light. What is it trying to tell us? Eleanor focused on the symbols. They began arranging themselves into recognizable patterns. One symbol repeated over and over. The same symbol carved in the canyon, the same one burned into the ledger, the same one on the coin, the same one on the mask. The circle with 3 arrows. The symbol flared brightly, and then the projections shifted into figures. Human silhouettes, tall, clad in robes, standing beneath banners marked with the same emblem. Weiss nearly collapsed. This is them, he whispered. The projections changed again, now showing the figures facing outward, pointing toward distant lands. Lines extended from their shores outward into the Atlantic. Routes, voyages, expansions. Transoceanic travel, Rourke breathed.
Before known civilization, the projections rippled. A new shape took form. Something massive, something terrifying. A shadow rising from the sea, towers of flame, darkness blotting out stars. The robed figures recoiled. Weiss whispered, "The Skyburners. Columbus mentioned them." Eleanor's voice trembled. "This is their enemy." Keen muttered, "Enemy of who?" Rourke swallowed. "Enemy of a civilization that shouldn't exist." The sphere pulsed harder. The final projection formed. A door. A monumental stone door, etched with thousands of glyphs, and behind it, something glowing, something alive. The projection dimmed. The hall fell silent. Eleanor breathed out. "It's showing us where we need to go next." Weiss nodded slowly. "The heart of the Republic." Rourke pointed at the archway. "The tapping came from behind there." Keen raised her weapon. "Then that's where we go." The team approached the archway. The sphere drifted ahead, then flickered violently and died. Eleanor's blood ran cold. Rourke whispered, "Something shut it off." A voice echoed from behind the archway. "You should not have come this far." Not mechanical, not ancient. A human voice. Deep, male, alive. Keen signaled the soldiers to spread. The shadows shifted, and a figure stepped forward. A man in modern gear, armed, breathing hard, bearing a patch on his jacket. CIA. Keen froze. Rourke swore. The man raised his weapon. "You have no idea what you're awakening," he said. Eleanor's heart pounded. "Who are you?" He shook his head. "I'm the last survivor of the 2002 team," Weiss gasped. Keen raised her gun. The man pointed at Eleanor. "And if you keep going, You'll unleash what wiped out mine.